Since Precious Scars buff in Season 23 has definitely skyrocketed in usage for all subclasses, especially the Solar subclass. You may be wondering why I'm bringing up Precious Scars. The reason I'm bringing it up is because these two exotics that I'm going to be mentioning today are very similar in how they play. They both are able to heal your teammates, but both have a secondary portion of the exotic that makes them very unique. Phoenix Cradle is the exotic we're going to be talking about today and has been in the game for a long time now. And many people overlook this exotic. Honestly, we may have a special gem within this season just for team play and PvE. This exotic has the exotic perk called Beacons of Empowerment. This states your Solar Invictus lasts twice as long, going from 5 seconds to 10 seconds. And also allies who pass through your sunspots are granted Solar Invictus and also Solar Restoration. So let's dive into Solar Invictus. This is an aspect on the Solar Titan subclass that gives you faster ability regen and slower super draining. Those sunspots also give you restoration. Basically with this exotic you will have 5 seconds more of Solar Invictus, which means faster ability regen for you and your teammates who walk through the sunspots, and all of you will also get restoration. This kind of acts like Precious Scars by giving your teammates restoration constantly, as long as they know to step in the sunspots. Let's then talk about the Solar subclass. We're going to be on the Solar Titan class within this build. And for the super, we're going to be using the Burning Maul super. We're using the super because of the two aspects for more damage and longer super duration. But you can use the Hammer of Soul if you want to as well. For the class ability, you can use whatever class ability you want. I tend to go with Rally Barricade for a shorter cooldown and just the bust by standing behind it. But again, use whatever you want. For the melee, use the Throwing Hammer melee. This will be your main sunspot generator for you and your teammates and the main ability for the build. You can also pick up this hammer constantly, making an infinite loop. We will get into how you use this hammer in the gameplay loop since this ability got nerfed within the season with a 1.5 delay in between pickups, and honestly that hurts a lot. For the grenade, use the healing grenade. This will help you stay alive when you're about to die. It will help start stacking that restoration. For the aspects of this build, we're using the Roaring Flames and Soul Invictus. Roaring Flames will give us all our abilities 20% more damage at max stacks. So there's 1 stack, 2 stacks, and 3 stacks. So at max stacks you'll get 20%. This will also allow your uncharged melee to scorch targets when you have stacks of Roaring Flames. This means you can generate orbs by just using your normal melee. You can also ignite targets by punching them 3 times with Ember of Ashes. The next aspect we have is Soul Invictus. We've kind of already talked about this, but once you get a Scorch Kill, Ability Final Blow, or impacts from the Hammer of Soul super, it will spawn a Sunspot. This will give you restoration and an increased ability regen for 10 seconds with our exotic, which will also apply to your teammates when they walk through it from our exotic. For the fragments, we have Ember of Ashes. Like we said before, this will help ignite targets with your super, sunspots, and your uncharged melee when you have Roaring Flames stacked. Next, we have Ember of Torches. Yes, we already have a way to get Radiant by getting Solar multi-kills or precision hits from the artifact, but getting an easy charged melee hit to get Radiant is very nice. Radiant is a 25% buff to all your weapons. Next, we have Ember of Benevolence. When your teammates step in your sunspots and get that restoration, you will also get a huge bump to your ability regen across the board. This is for 10 seconds. And this can also stack with your Soul Invictus for 10 seconds from our exotic. You can also proc this fragment by throwing a healing grenade at your targets for another way to get restoration, or giving your teammates Radiant from Ember of Torches by getting melee hits. You can also use this if you accidentally throw your hammer off the map. You can throw a healing grenade at your teammate and you to give you restoration and also to get your hammer recharging faster. For the last and final fragment, we have Ember of Empyrean. This will extend your restoration and Radiant timer when you get a Solar ability kill or Solar weapon kill to keep your healing rolling. For the mods of this build, here are the full mods. For the helmet of this build, for the first mod we have Hands On. This will give us more super energy on melee kills. With this build, we're going to be getting a lot of melee kills from our Throwing Hammer and just our uncharged melee. Both those will also count to your super. So with this, we're going to be getting our super constantly. For a second mod, we have Harmonic Siphon. Rapid Solar Weapon Final Blows creates an overpower. So since we're going to be focusing on solar weapons within this build, just to give us Radiant and that Scorch to spawn more sunspots, this will also spawn Orbs of Power. For our next mod, we have Heavy Ammo Finder, just for increased drop chance of heavy ammo on a kill. For our gauntlets, we have 2 stacks of Impact Induction. Basically what this does is causing and damage with the melee attack, reduces your grenade cooldown. Again, this is from your charged melee or uncharged melee, but this will just help give us our healing grenade back. For last and third mod, we have Heavy Handed. Your powered melee final blows creates an overpower. Again, like we just mentioned from Impact Induction, we're going to be getting a lot of melee kills with this build, so we're going to be getting orbs from our melee kills. There is a 10-second delay in between melee kills where it's going to spawn an orb, so just keep that in mind. For the chest piece, we have Charged Up as our first mod. Increases the maximum number of stacks of armor charge you can carry by 1, so we're going from 3 to 4 stacks of armor charges. This will just help play into our armor charges, just to give us more time for our Surge mod we're going to be mentioning very soon. For next mods, you can use whatever resist mods you want. For For the boots of this build, we have Orbs of Restoration. Picking up an Orb of Power grants a small amount of energy to your ability of the least energy. So for example, if your grenade is the lowest energy, if you just use your grenade, you pick up an Orb of Power, it'll give you 10% to that grenade. For our second mod, we have Solar Weapon Surge. Your solar weapons gain a small bonus to damage while you have armor charges. This also decays over time. So every time we pick up an orb, you'll get a 10% damage buff to all your solar weapons. And obviously you can change out any surges you want for this, but I just go for solar. Especially because this is a solar build and I'm focusing around the solar element. But normally with this mod, you're going to get 10 seconds of it, but with another mod on our class item we're going to get to very soon, it will bring us up to 15 seconds. For last mod, we have Invigoration. Reduces your melee cooldown each time you pick up an Orb Power. We're also going to get 10% to just our melee, but you can switch this out for innovation if you want to, or even recuperation for even more healing. I just like the melee, so just in case if I throw my hammer off the map or something like that, or I can't pick it up, picking up Orbs of Power will give me 20% towards my melee. I'm saying 20% because 10 from Orbs of Restoration and also 10 from Invigoration. For our class ability, we have Outreach. Reduces your melee cooldown when using your class ability. So again, if you accidentally throw your melee off the map or something like that, or you can't pick it up, you can just use your class ability and get some of your melee back. For our next mod, we have Powerful Attraction. Automatically collects Orbs of Power when you activate your class ability. So whenever you use your class ability, it will pick up any orbs around you. For our last mod, we have Time Dilation. This is the mod we were talking about with our Solar Surge. So your decaying armor charges have a longer duration. So I'm going from 10 seconds, which is the normal decaying timer, up to 15 seconds with this mod. That would just help keep that 10% damage bonus to our solar weapons, also with the Radiant, which is a 25% buff. So we're basically getting a 35% buff to our solar weapons. For the weapons of this build, use solar weapons. It can literally be any solar weapons you want. Polaris Lance is cooking this season, especially with the artifact mods. Sunshot is a monster this season. Callous Mini Tool is great, and also a really underrated hand cannon that feels amazing. It's called a Patchel Integration. I think I'm saying that right. This was a ritual weapon during the season of Deep of Lightfall, with stats for all and incandescent. I really do enjoy using this weapon. We can also use Zalia's Bane, which is from King's Fall, which is basically the same hand cannon, but it can roll with 2 damage perks. For the stats of this build, get 100 resilience, just for that 30% damage reduction. Get high discipline for more healing grenades, and build the rest into strength, just in case if you accidentally throw your hammer off the map, which happens more than you think. Let's talk about those artifact mods. The first one is Kindling Trigger. This will help our solar weapons apply Scorch when you are radiant, which will be constant from our Ember of Torches fragment. This mod allows our weapons to easily spawn sunspots for you and your teammates since you're getting a Scorch kill. The next one is Flint Striker. This is the other way we're going to get Radiant, by getting rapid solar precision hits or rapid solar weapon final blows. We will have a Radiant a lot with this build, so you can use this to refresh a timer if you want to, just allow your weapons to Scorch. Next we have Heart of the Flame. This allows you to get more super damage when you have teammates around you, which is very good for raids and harder content when you're near your teammates a lot. Stacking this with Roaring Flames will allow your super to do a crap ton of damage. Next we have Revitalize and Blast. This will allow your solar abilities to weaken bosses, which is great for raids, dungeons, or nightfalls when you see bosses or champions a lot. Lastly, we have Raise of Precision. This allows your solar weapons to ignite targets when getting a precision kill while radiant. This will just help for more ad clear and more ignitions, if you do want to build into that. For the gameplay loop of this build, it's very simple. First, use your Throne Hammer melee on a low health target or red bar enemy. This will get the whole loop going. This will firstly proc our aspect Roaring Flames, which will start to increase your Throwing Hammer melee damage and will give your uncharged melee scorching abilities. And put a sunspot on a target you just defeated from our aspect Soul Invictus. This gives us 10 seconds of increased ability regen and restoration, which can apply to your teammates when they step into the sunspot. This is from our armor exotic Phoenix Cradle. When your teammates step into the sunspots, you will get increased ability regen from our Fragment Ember of Benevolence for 10 seconds. You will spawn a sunspot on every hammer kill you get. The more kills you get with your abilities, the more damage your hammer will do, which will go up to 20%. Let's talk about our melee rotation. Since Bungie decided to put a 1.5 second delay after hammer pickup, players have found that if you use your hammer, then uncharged melee, it can be very effective for ad clear, not so much boss damage though. And this is because your uncharged melee doesn't do a crap ton of damage like your Throwing Hammer normally does, even with the ×3 stacks of Roaring Flames. This ad clear potential is because after 3 uncharged melees in between hammer throws, you can ignite the target, which definitely helps with a lot of damage, and you definitely can build into that. But I built into survivability with this build. With your melee, you will get more grenade energy from our 2 stacks of impact induction, extended timers for restoration and radiant. You'll also get an orb of power on melee kills to give you 15 seconds of 10% solar weapon damage, and also more ability energy from our orbs of restoration. You'll also get more super energy from hands on. So as an overall, your melee will give you and your teammates more ability energy, restoration, orbs, sunspots to scorch targets, more grenade energy, a weapon damage boost, more ability energy from your orbs, and more super energy. And that is a lot, I know. Okay, let's move away from the melee and talk about your grenade for a second. This will basically give us a pocket restoration. If you use it next to a teammate, it will proc Ember of Benevolence again, which will give you even more ability energy across the board for 10 seconds. Let's talk about your super. Again, you can use any super you want with this build. They will both do 20% more damage with 3 stacks of Roaring Flames, and both can spawn sunspots on activation with Hammer of Soul spawning them on hits as well. This is completely your preference, but Burning Maul is very good for stunning a boss in place, so your teammates aren't getting bombarded. And take Crota for example, on day 1 people used Burning Maul just to stun Crota so he wasn't slamming you every time. Use solar weapons with this build to maximize your Radiant and Scorch from your artifact to spawn sunspots from scorching targets with these solar weapons, and to extend your restoration and Radiant timers from Ember of Empyrean. That is it for the build. If you made it to the end of this video, I appreciate you as always, and I hope you enjoyed this build. I enjoy making builds like these and discovering cool things about different unused exotics. So make sure to mention your builds in the comments, or mention an exotic that you'd like to use that is definitely overlooked by the Destiny community. Thanks for watching, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and Happy New Year's.